And beautiful people, gente bonita, ¿cómo están todos? How is everybody doing today? Yo estoy bien, estoy aquí platicando con ustedes. Muchísimas gracias por su presencia aquí. How you guys doing? So I've interviewed two or three people in this Black Spanish podcast, and I haven't taken the time to actually introduce myself and let you know who am I, why am I doing this podcast, and how did I get into learning languages. So let's start off. Where do we begin in the story, in la cuenta, el cuento, I think is the word, of JT, aka Joseph Thomas, aka Chocolate Desire. So how I got into speaking. So first off, my name is JT. I was born in Sacramento, California. I was raised in a few cities around Northern California. Outside of that, Central California. I lived in Alabama for some time. I lived in Georgia for some time. I went to Arizona State, etc., etc. And I speak Portuguese and I speak Spanish. In that order. Actually, in that order, I speak Spanish maybe a little bit better than I used to speak Portuguese. I still speak Portuguese good, but right now I use Spanish in my work environment, and on top of that, I'm taking my test to be a court interpreter in Spanish and Portuguese. So I kind of put myself in a situation where I had to learn how to speak Spanish better than I was speaking Portuguese. How I got into speaking Portuguese was I used to go to Arizona State University. Shout out to Arizona State. Sun Devils, we out here. And when I was going to Arizona State, they had a program in Brazil called Ciências Sem Fronteiras. Ciências Sem Fronteiras fue un programa. Ciências Sem Fronteiras was a program. That's how I was speaking in Portuguese right there. Ciências Sem Fronteiras was a program that used to send students from Brazil, all around Brazil, like people from the cities of São Paulo, Recife, the city Belo Horizonte, Rio de Janeiro, some of the cities in Rio Grande do Sul. And they were taking those kids and basically doing this program where they would send them to all these different cities, engineering students, mind you, all these different cities around the world. Like I met some who did the program in Germany, somebody did the program in the UK, somebody did the program where I was at Arizona State, somebody did the program actually in the city where I was born at Stack State and UC Davis too as well. So it was this really big thing. I don't know if they're still doing it now, but so I bring this up because when they did it, I was staying in these dorms called Troy Apartments in ASU. They sent 500 students from Brazil to stay specifically in those dorms, and then the next year they moved them to like 200, 300 to these other dorms called Villas of Vista del Sol, which I ended up going to afterwards. That's another story for another day. So because of that, I just fell in love with the culture, bro. Like I think most people who learn languages, a lot of the times, like people who like to learn languages, what'll happen is there's usually a moment that we have that activates that love to learn language or that desire to learn a specific language. For me, that was it. For me, it was me hanging out with them and practicing with them and trying to talk to the girls. I'll be real with you. Like the first time I tried to have a conversation with somebody in Portuguese, there was this girl named Sara. She was in the computer room with me. She told me she was from Brazil. I went on my phone and just started like Googling how to say words in Portuguese. And I was trying to talk to her, and it was not working. It was not working. But that was the start, bro. That just was a start. Then there was another girl called, I don't want to say her name because she might get mad. But, there was another girl who shall remain nameless, and I was trying to talk to her, and I was trying my hardest to speak Portuguese, but it just was hard, bro. And I learned it through failed attempts with trying to find my future wifey at the time, going to house parties with them and just kicking it. They're kicking back. They playing Big Sean and shit like that. I'm over here, bro. I remember like in the first early months of me practicing Portuguese. So on campus, like ASU was just amazing. Like on our campus, we had a Domino's Pizza, Jamba Juice, all this cool stuff, bro. And I remember, man, I used to go and kick it with them, and we would go like to Domino's Pizza. We would go eat together at the cafeteria, and I would go on a group and say just be me and like 17, 18 Brazilians or 20 Brazilians. We used to go deep. So when we used to go, man, I remember them days when I would just be sitting at the table next to him, Mateos, João, todos, and I'd be sitting next to them niggas who just be talking, nigga, and I wouldn't understand nothing. And I'd be lost in the motherfucking conversation. I'm over there like, what did you? I'm like, and it was weird, man. Like, but but when in those moments, man, I just was like, I gotta learn this. In those moments, I just was like, I gotta learn this. I gotta figure out what these people are saying. These beautiful sounding words and intonations. Like, why did he smile when he just did, or did he did something like just some little noise? Like, why? Like the simple things. Like that was what really like man, that was one of my fondest experiences when it comes to learning. The fondest experience this is just for me. I can't speak for all people who are linguists, but I can say for me being a linguist, the fondest moments I have being a linguist, honestly, is when it's just the interaction with people. Like the interactions, bro. You can't, those moments, those true, genuine moments of interaction, you can't trade that for nothing in the world, bro. It's like gold. Like those moments, like it's just like those, like just the simple stuff, bro. Like when we used to this, yeah, man. It just was great times, man. The parties, that was a really big cultural immersion moment for me. Cause like I said, we was with 500 and then they said another 300 to stay at these apartments down the street from us too. So we used to go party there all the time too and kick it with them. It's funny cause they're actually having a Brazilian carnival in Sacramento later on tonight. I'm not later on tonight, but I think it's is it tonight? Hold on, let me see. When is that carnival? Let me Google. When the Brazilian carnival in the Brazilian carnival? Oh, let me see. I think it's this month actually in Sacramento. Let me see. I'm trying to see. Oh yeah, no, it's Saturday. It's Saturday doing it. Yeah, I'll be damned. You know what? I didn't even know they got a Brazilian cultural exchange center. Well, I do know that. I just don't go there. They have one in Sacramento. I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna go there just to kick it for a minute and just see what they're talking about. Like, just see what they're talking about. But what was I gonna say? Anyway, yeah, I'll be dang. Yeah, I gotta slide there and check it out. But yeah, so that's how I learned. I actually, contrary to popular belief, a lot of people don't know this. I've never taken a class in Portuguese. Never took a class in Portuguese. Never took a class in Spanish. I basically self-taught myself just by talking to people and then going home and doing my own research on the language and how to use it. I never actually like specifically took a class in grammar and all that. So I just practiced by myself, and that's how I did it. You know, I did it the street way. For me, I don't learn in classrooms. I just have never been a classroom type learner. I'm just a learner. I'm a learner. I learn through interaction. And I learn through just self-study a lot of the time. Like I like a lot of the times, like even what I'm doing now with Spanish, because like I said, I speak Spanish good already, but I'm learning law because I'm training to be a court interpreter. Which, by the way, I didn't even get into how I learned how to speak Spanish. So after I went to college, et cetera, we got kicked out. Long story. I got kicked out, and I ended up coming back to California. So Portuguese and Spanish, they're not necessarily the same, but there are enough similarities to where if you speak Portuguese, you can talk to somebody in Spanish and maybe have a somewhat feasibly understood conversation. I bring this up because when I came back to California, I was using Portuguese to talk to people who spoke Spanish. And you gotta understand, like before I had went to college, I had no idea how to speak Spanish. So I can always tell people this, like before I spoke Portuguese, when I would be in the store and I heard somebody speak Spanish to me, it sounded like but after I learned Portuguese, I could maybe 50% understand what somebody was telling me in Spanish, just because I knew Portuguese. So after that, I was like, dude, are you serious? And that's when I realized, like, man, like, I got to do this. I ended up learning how to speak Spanish. Same way, just by talking to people. Talking to people, practicing every day, writing down notes, taking down grammar notes, and talking. So, and I think for me, it was interesting because, like, see, Portuguese is my passion language. Portuguese is my passion language. I just love the way the sounds. I love the way I love the way it sounds. I love the people. I just love speaking Portuguese. Spanish is kind of more like my business language. I love Spanish culture too, and I love Mexican. I love Mexican people. They're just like talking to older. Like I had some of the best experiences as far as language learning, talking to older Mexican people. Like at my job, some of the sweetest people to have conversations with. Like just great, profound conversations. I remember this one guy. He used to always come and talk boxing with me. Great freaking guy, man. Like I missed that guy. I wish I had his number. And even they're just really cool people to talk to. Like, so I think for me, what made me learn Spanish, it was more because I feel like that's the language of the land here. Like, you know, when you're in California, particularly if you're trying to be an interpreter, I'm going in to be a court interpreter. Spanish is the dominant language in the court system that they need interpreters for. You know, I'm taking my test in Portuguese too, just because I feel like I would kind of occupy a void that a lot of, they ain't got this kind of unoccupied, but I learned it because I feel like that was a language that would just help me. At first it was kind of like, this is the language that would help me, but also because it's just my natural fascination. Like, I think what it was, Portuguese gave me that feeling to, like, when I would talk to people who spoke Spanish, I didn't feel lost. Like I remember when I was a kid one time, like I was like 14 and I had just really started hanging out with Mexicans when I was 14. I really started hanging out with like the little cliques of like Mexican kids in Vallejo. And I remember trying to ask them to help me speak Spanish, and they actually would try to help me sometimes, but I just wouldn't like, okay, it's what it is. They tried to help me, and then the next month I moved to Alabama. So, there goes that. But Portuguese kind of gave me that stepping stone to let me know that not only I can learn a language, but also that, like, for this language, it just kind of gave me the confidence to say I can do this. If I did this with that, I can do this. Because Portuguese is way harder than Spanish if you're learning it from speaking English. It kind of gave me that stepping stone. Now, right now, I'm in the process to be a court interpreter. So, because of that, I'm only focusing on Portuguese and Spanish, just making sure my stuff's tight because I'm taking my test. Funny story, I took my test to be an interpreter yesterday, right? I took the written exam. Do you know I literally failed that damn exam by 1%? Like I was supposed to get an 80% to pass. I failed it by 1 freaking percent. I was upset. I ain't gonna hold you. I was upset, but it is what it is. How I look at it was, and the thing about when you take the court interpreter exam is you have to wait 3 months to take it again. So how I look at it is it's a sign from God that it's meant for me, because by the time I take it, I know for sure in 3 months when I take it again, I'm going to be ready. Like ready. Because I'm taking it not only for the California court, but also on the federal court level too as well. So I think for me, with language learning, I found my calling through learning languages. I know, when I talk to a lot of people who say that, most people, when you talk to them, they'll tell you, I want to learn a language, or I took Spanish in high school, or I took 3 years of Spanish and I can't speak it. So let's just start on the topic of if you want to learn a language. If you want to learn a language, it's not something that you can do is like just a throwaway activity. Like you have to really live it. Like I was like, when I was really, I'm going hard on improving my, like just adding words to my vocabulary. But when I was learning Portuguese, I was like listening to the music every day. I was speaking to people in it every day. I was thinking it. I didn't think it that. No, I was thinking it every day. Like it just was different. I was challenging myself with any language. It's the same thing with Spanish. When I did Spanish, I was speaking it every day. I was listening to music in it every day. I was talking to people every day. When you are really about this learning a language, trying to speak and order a burrito the way exactly where you want it type thing, you have to really, really, really dedicate yourself to it. It's not something that's easy. It is not, especially the first few months. The first few months when you're trying to learn a language, it's never a comfortable procedure, because it's never a comfortable beginning, because in that moment you're just green, like you just don't know what's going on. Like I remember, like it's just so much. God, I remember when learning the alphabet, bro. Like when I did Portuguese, when I was in Portuguese, I had to really start from scratch because my brain was just bare. Like I had no idea how to learn languages, and I had no idea. So I had to just start bare. When I got into Spanish, it was different because, like I said, Portuguese kind of gave me a foot up on Spanish. So I could kind of already break through without having to do too. No. You know, funny story, actually, now that I think about it. Spanish was easier for me to get a hold of, but it was interesting because Spanish also taught me how much in Portuguese I was doing wrong. Because you got to remember, when I did Portuguese, I would read stuff, but I would also, in Portuguese, I learned street Portuguese. So everything I learned in Portuguese was literally based off of stuff that I heard people say and what I would read too. But the majority of what I would say, like how I'm talking to you right now, like the way I speak, I vary between me speaking kind of street sometimes, which kind of be based on like just, you know, people I might be around or my family, versus me speaking proper, which is based off of me reading books and Harry Potter novels and stuff like that growing up. So I bring all this up because when you do, like, when I really took time to like read and understand the grammar in Spanish, that was when I realized, like, dang, you know, I was speaking Portuguese. I would just talk to anybody the same way that I would talk to anybody. And that's not how you do it. I was sounding so ghetto. I was using tha. Like it was so many things. Like that's like, it is so many little things. So when you learn a language, it's a process. It's not something that you can do overnight. It's a process. And I always tell people this: do not try to learn a language that you're not interested in. Do not try to learn a language in a culture that you're not interested in. If you want to learn a language, you need to learn a language that you know for a fact you love and you fall in love. You need to learn it like. You need to learn by knowing that you're in love with the culture, knowing that it's something that you love and you enjoy. People always tell me like I'm talented, I have a linguistic talent, and yeah, to a certain extent I think I do. But more than that, the number one thing that will help you in learning a language, honestly, is interest. That is the biggest talent you can have. When you are really interested in a language and really interested in learning, bro, you don't understand the power. People don't understand that. We got to talk about this. People don't understand the power of interest in general. Now, we're going to focus this conversation in language, but I'm talking about in general. Interest, when I was learning Portuguese, interest woke me the fuck up every morning. Interest was what made me be a grown man, well, kid at the time, but grown man, going to coffee shops and pizza spots and kicking it with people who literally for 3-4 straight hours are speaking around me in a language that I cannot understand at all. But interest made me say, bro, I got to figure this out. I want this. I want to understand the way this sounds. I love the way these words sound. I love their accents. Interest made me that. Same thing with Spanish. The very few times, those times I would go to taquerias, even now, well, not now because I speak fluently now, but I go to taquerias and they'll be saying something to taqueria that I don't understand. They would say something to taqueria that I didn't understand. And I'm like, what are they talking about? Why did he laugh like that when he just said not even like a full sentence, like a little word jab? Like, interest is powerful, man. Like, interest is one of the key things for learning a language. That's all I can tell you. Like it drove me and galvanized me to learn languages, bro. So that's the biggest thing. Like the power of the talent of interest. I was the talent of interest. If you want to learn a language, bro, if there's a language you want to learn, you have to find some way, even if it's a language, even like when I'm telling you this right now, you might not necessarily have an attached interest to it. You have to find some way to ignite that. And the biggest way to ignite interest, honestly, I feel for anybody is just it's just cultural immersion, be around social immersion, be around the people of that culture or who speak that language or of the subset culture that speaks that said language. Because naturally, like I've met a lot of people who learned languages or got introduced to the world of learning languages just by being around. There's a guy I watched on YouTube. He has a YouTube channel and he's a Texas interpreter. He makes pretty good money, and he's a white guy, but he said the same. He speaks Spanish. He's an interpreter for Spanish, and he grew up in a border town in Texas where there was a lot of Latinos, and he learned Spanish because of that. I know one guy, he speaks Spanish kind of, but he speaks it better than any black person you would think spoke Spanish, honestly. So, and he learned it by, he was working at a factory in Central California. He was working at a factory in Central California, and when he was working over there, and the dude, he started working over there, and it was all Latinos. It was just everybody there spoke Spanish. Like everything was in Spanish over there. So he just kind of had to adapt. I know a few guys. I met one guy. It was a guy I met at a dialysis center. He was picking up his mother. He served in the Korean War, but he was stationed over there for a long time. So he actually learned how to speak fluent Korean. So, social immersion is one of the strongest ways of learning the language. I always say this: social immersion will take you far. It'll take you pretty far in life. Plus, it's the career opportunities. I'm studying to be a court interpreter. Court interpreters start off in the state of California, bare minimum $37 an hour. So, there's a career opportunities for it. I guess how I could tell people to sum this up, and I don't want to talk forever about me, is in learning a language, I don't know, it's just a fun experience, bro. So I'll say it's an experience. But I think that's enough. Yo creo que este fue suficiente. Fue muy bien platicar con ustedes. Did everything goes good with you guys? Hope everything stays chill, and this is the Black Spanish Podcast.